Yeah. 120.
All right, folks, it's 12 noon.
Not everybody signed in.
Okay, that's the first thing on my agenda here. If you haven't signed in, please do so, and please put your phone number and your email on there. At some point, hello, Joe, good to see you. Didn't see you come in. At some point, Facebook is going to shut us down, I'm sure, because we're firearms related. And if I don't have a phone number and or an email, I won't be able to let you all know when we've got, the meetings. Meetings are always on the fourth Saturday of the month, not the last Saturday, the fourth Saturday, 12 noon here. So you put it on your calendar, please. Joel, Cheryl, good to see you. The meetings will never be canceled. If I'm down sick or dead, there will be somebody to fill in. Those of you that were meetings several months ago, my friend Ed Kasser, who just moved here from Denver, moved to Tonkawa from Denver to get out of the craziness. And I think he's going to be a regular attendee here. Glenn, could I get you to lead us in prayer?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the blessings that we have by living in this country. We pray, Father, that we'll be bold and forward, that we stand up for those freedoms that we have. Help us, Father, to tell others of all the blessings and the good things that we have because we live in this great country. Pray, Father, as we meet together today, we'll learn more about what's happening in our country and what we can do to make it better. Pray that in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Ed, would you like to come up and lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. All right, let's see. At the sign-up table, as always, is Glenn Cope. If you're not a member, this is a good day to do it. And in the control booth back there is Stephen Phipps. I'd like for everybody to give Stephen a hand. If it wasn't for him and Pastor Jack, we wouldn't have these. This is a venue, and this is a great venue for our meetings. And he gets here an hour and a half early to get everything set up. Hello. Okay. One thing, we're going to get right to our speakers here in just a minute, but I saw an article this morning, and I wanted to mention it here. There's a man named Tony Martin in England. August 22nd, 1999, two guys broke into his house. One of them carried a crowbar. He shot him with a shotgun, an unregistered shotgun. In England, your guns have to be registered. They registered the rifles and the handguns, and then they had a list and they seized them. They do allow citizens to have shotguns, but you have to register them. He hadn't registered his. He shot the two burglars. One of them was threatening him with the crowbar. He killed one of them. He's in prison for life. They broke into his house, threatened him with a deadly weapon. He defended himself, and the English system put him in prison for life. Folks, that's what they want here in America. That's exactly what they want here. That's why we have to get organized and we have to fight. I've said this many times. Our enemies are organized. If we don't get organized, they will literally come to our homes one at a time and bury us. So that's why OK2A is so important. Please spread the word, tell your friends. Fourth Saturday here at 12 noon, the second Tuesday at 6 o'clock, I have my mini meeting in Tonkawa at Mary's Cafe, Mary's Grill. So spread the word, and I'd love to see you at both meetings. We'll keep you updated on what's going on. Now, we are honored today. We have our state senator, Mr. Bill Coleman, Senate District 10, and Ken Luttrell, which is Eastern K County and most of Osage, or all of Osage. Yeah. And so they're going to give us kind of a recap. We've been talking the last umpteen meetings about what's going on at the legislature. Today, we're going to get to hear about it from the horse's mouth.
You sure that's the right place? Right in?
You stole my line. Bill, have you go first?
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. First off, let me be sure you know that I am very honored and very humbled to be your state senator. I have just completed my third session, and walking into the Capitol when we're in session is not getting old for me. I still get goosebumps and proud. When I get in there, I might cry some, but it's been a great experience so far, so I just wanted to thank you all. We just completed the first session of the 58th legislature, and that session is probably the most successful session in the state of Oklahoma in at least 10 years, and I get that from the people that have been there over 10 years, the other people I serve with. They said that this session was by far the most successful, and it kind of felt that way as we went through it. Some of the highlights over on the Senate side, we started with 1,090 bills. That's a whole lot of bills, but there's a good culling process to where we just passed 295 of them that were signed by the governor. So there's going to be 700 carried over to next year. A lot of those bills will never be heard. Chairmen of committees have the purview on what bills are heard, and my guess is a lot of those coming over next year will not be heard. But it was a very, very good session. One of the things we passed right off the bat was an open meeting renewal extension. We had the Open Meeting Act that we passed when we were working through COVID last April and May, to where city councils, school boards could meet via Zoom, and we made that legal right there in the first week. We passed open transfer in the schools, giving parents a much greater choice of where their students go to school. If you have a student in Ponca City and for whatever the reason you think Blackwell is the place for your child to go to school, as long as Blackwell is not maxed out, you can do that. Blackwell School can't say anything about it, neither can the Ponca City schools. You do have to transport them there, but we do have a pretty good school choice system in Oklahoma right now. We also passed the one-year look back for school systems. Schools were getting paid for students on the average of a 3-year look back, and what we did is we changed that to a one-year look back, because with that 3-year look back, there were these things called ghost students. And we figured that there were 55,000 students in the state of Oklahoma that didn't exist that we were paying for. So we got rid of that, and that's going to help a lot. 55,000 ghost students is what we figured we're paying for every year because of the way the look back system worked. So we fixed it, and we were proud of that one. We eliminated the merit protection system for state employees, so it's going to be a lot harder for frivolous lawsuits against the state with their employees. We also made Oklahoma a 2A sanctuary state. Thank you all. There was a whole lot of major pro-life legislation that we passed. I think about 8 or 10 bills came out of the Senate and the House and were signed by the governor. We passed the Oklahoma Religious Freedom Act. If we ever have a pandemic again, nobody can shut our churches down. We are more than welcome to come in here and worship the Lord, no matter what the conditions are outside the government. Cannot shut that down. We banned the teaching of critical race theory in schools. That was a very important and very hot issue, and it passed quite handily. One of the things that I was really proud of in this year, the legislature is responsible for setting the budget, and this year, or a year ago, I would have thought we would have been about $2 billion in the hole with COVID and everything going on in the world. What turned out this year is we saved $800 million, and before it's all said and done, I think we'll be able to sock away a little over $1 billion from this year's budget. And we did it, and we increased a lot of spending. We're at a record number for common education investment with the state of Oklahoma, and we were able to do that and still save money. We did a personal income tax cut with the highest level now at 5%. That's now lowered down to 4.75%. We cut corporate income tax rates from 6% to 4%, hopefully to lure more businesses into the state of Oklahoma and to keep our economic engine moving. We had a lot of economic diversification policies that we put in. The other thing we focused focused on was high-speed internet access in Oklahoma. We earmarked $43 million for internet service providers to use that money to help reach out into the rural areas of Oklahoma and get them a higher speed broadband, and that will also help attract businesses into the state of Oklahoma. If we're a wired state everywhere, businesses are going to want to look at that. We did redistricting, and we had only one no vote in the Senate on it. We had 0 no votes in the House. I can tell you personally, my district, Senate District 10, I'm losing Newkirk, but I'm keeping Tonkawa, and then I'm going farther east than I am now. Right now, my district stops at halfway through Skiatook. When this is done, I will go to the other side of Skiatook, all the way over to this side of Collinsville. So I've got Ponca City all the way to Tulsa County once we get the redistricting in place here in 2022. Some of the things that we did for pro-life, we restored Oklahoma's prohibition on abortion if the central tenets of Roe versus Wade or other cases are overturned. So if Roe versus Wade is overturned, we don't have to do anything in Oklahoma. It's already in place. We passed House Bill 2441, which prohibits an abortion once a fetal heartbeat is detected. That was a very important one. Also, we had a regulation, the use of chemical abortions to help protect the health and safety of the mother. We put that into statute. The liberty bills that we passed, we took some concrete actions to help protect the rights and liberties of all of Oklahomans. We put some real teeth in an effort to push back against federal government overreach by funding a division of the Attorney General's office. We set into the budget $10 million for the Attorney General's office just to fight any federal overreach that should occur in the state of Oklahoma. We also passed a Oklahoma Religious Freedom Act, as I told you about, that does ensure religious institutions are never deemed non-essential during a pandemic. Senator Hamilton of Wilburton area, he was the author, and he was the one that helped us get the Second Amendment sanctuary stay through. We also had Senator Standridge. He requires a vote of the people or reduce funds provided by taxes levied on the people. The other important bill that I think we passed was our state questions. We did pass Medicaid expansion in the state of Oklahoma a couple of years ago. But when you go to the polls to vote, you don't know how much that's going to cost the state of Oklahoma. And the Medicaid expansion cost us about $168 million. We passed a new law that says on the state questions, in the future, they will have to explain what the question is, and two, provide the fiscal impact that it's going to have on the state of Oklahoma should that state question pass. And that's pretty much it on mine. One of the things that Ken is focusing on, I know it's a big problem here, and that's the marijuana grow industry, and Ken's going to speak a little bit on that, and then both of us will be available for questions. Thank you all again very much.
And on questions, folks, we'll do a question session after both of them speak, and we can address questions to either one or both.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Senator Coleman. Just to touch on a couple of things that Senator Coleman mentioned, in redistricting, my district will still contain Ponca City, north to the state line, all of the Big Bend area. I picked up Fairfax in redistricting, and the city of Pawhuska will only have one representative. It won't be split down Main Street anymore. I run a little bit east of Pawhuska, north to the state line, down to Skiatook, and then across. So that really made the people in Fairfax happy, and the people in Pawhuska are extremely happy to have one representative for their entire cities, rather than not their neighbor has one rep, the guy across the street has a different rep. So that was good. I was really super pleased with redistricting. Just to touch briefly on concern, the number one issue that my office is being contacted with right now is marijuana grow operations. Whether it's your neighbor, somebody you know, or people down the road from you, they're popping up everywhere. And we've heard your voice, we've heard your concerns, and we addressed that this year in several pieces of legislation. We passed legislation through the Senate and through the House to let the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority partner with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs and put more enforcement agents out in the field to inspect these places, to make sure that the bad operators are caught, put out of business, run out of the state.
We require the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority now to inspect every new licensed facility. They were trying to inspect these facilities with just 6 inspectors for the entire state. No way they could ever catch up in our lifetimes. We've also required entities, when they're applying for their license, to disclose if they have foreign ownership. If they do not disclose that, or they find out later that they are foreign owned, they lose their license. They're out of business. We've given them permission to hire 62 more compliance officers and inspectors and investigators, get them out there in the field. One of the things that most people don't realize is those inspectors and enforcement officers for the OMMA don't carry firearms. They're not CLEAT certified. That's why it was so important to get them partnered up with the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, get them out there in the field protecting the citizens, ensuring that those people that are in the marijuana business legitimately are able to conduct their business, keep the patients safe, keep the public safe, and stop some of this ongoing buying and at twice the price that land is worth and putting the grow operations in. What I want to share with you now is the latest information that I got just yesterday, wasn't it, Bill? Yeah, from the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. Folks, most people don't realize how big a business this has become in 3 years in Oklahoma. Just here in K and Osage County, we now have 324 dispensaries. We have 340 grow operations in K and Osage County. So statewide, we have 369,000 licensed patients. We have 7,850 grow operations, 2,264 dispensaries in the state of Oklahoma. So regular citizens, patients, grow operations, dispensaries have all asked, where's all the money going? How much money are they getting, and what's the state doing with it? Well, I'm proud to share with you that we put a 7% tax on all of the marijuana sales. Okay, that 7% tax, 75% of that goes to common education, straight to them. 25% of that tax is dedicated for drug education and rehabilitation programs throughout the state. The dollar figures on that, through June 1st, the 7% tax has given $22 million to education, $7.2 million to drug education and rehabilitation. On top of that, there's also state sales tax and local sales tax on marijuana sales. Through June 1st, that has been $36 million to our local counties and cities and communities. Total tax collections this year through June 1st, $65 million from the marijuana industry. Folks, that's a ton of money. And I'm proud to say that we're being good stewards of it and making sure that it goes where it was supposed to go and being spent wisely. Whether you support medical marijuana, whether you don't, whether you love it, hate it, use it, don't use it, you can rest assured that we are being good stewards with that money and being good stewards for our communities and for our fellow citizens. With that, I'll close. But if you should have questions, if you should have problems, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're in close contact with the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs and the people at OMMA. We're going to weed out the bad actors. We're going to get them out of our state. We're going to run them out of the state and send them somewhere else. The reason that they came here and left the places that they were is because Oklahoma has the lowest licensing fees in the nation. $2,500 for a grow license. Some of the other states, it's $100,000 for a grow license. Some of these fees and stuff we didn't get a voice on because that's what the people voted into place. But we're fine tuning it. We're still in the toddler stages of this industry, and we're trying to get ahead of it and get a grip on it and ensure the safety for the public. So we appreciate your patience. If you have concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you've got tips, problems, we've had calls come in from people that have seen semis leaving a grow operation down the road from their house in the middle of the night hauling marijuana. to another state. And that's one of the problems that these busts are doing. Unlicensed facilities and facilities that are selling their marijuana on the black market. We're going to put a stop to it. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, some of you old timers already know this, but I'm going to go through it. When we do the questions, we have one at a time. I'll call on you. And if at all possible, please stand and please try and speak up so everyone in the room can hear your question. And please get to your question. We don't need 10 minutes of you explaining why you're asking the question. That way, everybody that has a question will have time to get to their questions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. You can address your questions to either one or both of our guests today. Okay, Michael, number one, speak up.
So, got a really interesting question when it comes to OK2A versus medical marijuana. I was involved in that accident. I've been injured quite bad, still recovering. And if I apply and actually am approved for medical marijuana, how does that affect open carry? Not any at all, not at all?
It doesn't affect that unless you should be found to be under the influence by a police officer when you're stopped or something. I'm going to give you my short version that I give to my fellow veterans on purchasing firearms that happen to have or have been afraid to get their medical marijuana card. Your application for an Oklahoma medical marijuana card is covered under the HIPAA Act. No one can access that information. Not the FBI, not the ATF. No one can access that medical information. It is as protected here in the state as your personal medical records are. When my fellow veterans say, when they come to that question on the firearms form that says, are you taking any illegal drugs? I tell them to leave it to your own conscience because you're already lying on your application when you check that one that says you don't have a mental condition. I've got some friends that I'm not real sure they should have a firearm. Some of my fellow veterans. I wouldn't tell them to lie, but I would tell you to use your own good conscience and judgment on things like that.
I just filled out the application for the firearm yesterday, brand new one. And it asked if I was addicted to it, not if I was using it, but addicted to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's still a federal illegal substance.
Correct.
You want to know if you're addicted. And so it doesn't cross over unless there's any kind of subpoena or anything like that.
No.
Like with my CDL, it wouldn't affect the CDL ones I'm not done. Because I'm actually off work and I don't know how long I'll be off work. So.
And it's a touchy situation on some of the companies, trucking companies that are drug testing and still consider marijuana a controlled substance. Hopefully the result that we're going to see from the conversations that they're having in Congress is for Congress to take it out of the Schedule 1. That'll also open it up for banking for the legitimate businesses to make it easier for them to do banking with and not have to deal in cash all the time. And so those are on the horizon. Appreciate that question. Good question.
Appreciate your answer.
Next. Yeah.
I got a question for both of them. In Oklahoma, what have you done to make Oklahoma a full life state? I mean, making to abolish abortion, make Oklahoma a full life state. Go ahead.
If you couldn't hear, his question is what's being done to make Oklahoma a pro-life state?
Fortunately, Senator Coleman and I both have a 100% pro-life voting record. And I used to be of the opinion that if it was an issue that came up, legislation that came up that I knew or felt like was blatantly unconstitutional, that I would not vote for it. I've changed my mind over the years, and I'll vote for anything that might save one unborn child's life. And I used to feel bad that the state would have to spend some money defending some of those lawsuits brought against it and stuff. I no longer feel that way. I feel like that it's worth the effort to try and save one life of the unborn. And that's it for me. I don't know how many bills we passed, Bill.
I think we passed 8 this year that dealt with pro-life issues, but as far as a bill that just says abortion is abolished in the state of Oklahoma, we've tried that a couple of times, and they failed simply because of Roe versus Wade. I mean, we're directly telling the people that this Supreme Court decision doesn't really exist, and we could get into what's called nullification. And those bills that were run through, I believe Senator Silk ran SB 13, and then Senator Hamilton ran a similar one last year. The one Hamilton ran last session didn't even make it out of committee. It was voted in committee 0-9. So it didn't make it out of committee. But what we're trying to do is make Oklahoma the most pro-life state in America and not have something overturned in the courts immediately after we pass it.
So,
Stand up, Joe, if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
on the pro-life thing then, you know, Roe v. Wade is not an abortion or anti-abortion bill or whatever. It's a decision, it's more of a privacy thing. So the only way we're going to attack that is if we actually have something brought to SCOTUS. So how do we do that?
I think that we're going to let Missouri and what other state passed one? I believe Alabama or Mississippi. I think we're going to let them foot the bill on that. They both have passed similar things that are going to have to go through the appeal process and going to have to go to the SCOTUS before it's all said and done. So, you know, we could do that here in Oklahoma too, but if Missouri's doing it and another state's doing it, let's see what happens with them. Let's let them put the big attorney bill it's going to take to get that through and get that overturned. Hopefully, at some point, Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, period. There's going to be something that's going to challenge it, and it's going to require another vote of the Supreme Court. And I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to vote on it, but I think it will come up for another vote eventually, especially with what these other states are trying.
Like everything the government's involved with, it starts out this big and then it gets this big. And now there's jurisdictions where they're doing postnatal abortions. In other words, babies are born alive and they're killing them or letting them die.
State of New York.
New York, yeah. God help.
On your Supreme Court, if Dred Scott decision was still in effect, would you be fine with going on with that until it gets overturned?
I'm not familiar with that.
Dred Scott decision back with basically took the Civil War to overturn it?
Okay. If Roe v. Wade was out of the way, I'd vote the strongest abortion laws that could be thought of.
Yes, but while Dred Scott was in effect, would you be fine with keeping slavery legal? If slavery is actually...
I'm not familiar enough with the Dred Scott to really make a comment on that. That's something I haven't really heard of.
But then, I think what he's getting at is, you know, we have a lot of decisions by the Supreme Court that were made years and years and years ago that kind of set a precedent that it takes something massive to overturn it. You know, so how do you combat that?
Well, we did start with $10 million this past session. We did supply the Attorney General with $10 million to take on any federal overreach or any federal thing. So I guess one way to attack that is to tell the Attorney General to go after him.
Ken, you were talking about the amount allotted for education.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that just for colleges?
No. All common ed.
It's from,
Public education.
yes. And you guys on board?
Higher ed, career tech, regular common ed, yes.
Everybody got bumped up.
Good. On abortion, I stand firm. It's murder. So keep working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
One last comment on abortion issues is the people that are on the very far right that are absolute abolitionists for abortion. It's tough for their voices to be heard and for anything to work its way through the full legislature. So what we have had is people come together and say, if we can't get this, as Terry's often said, there's a lot of baby steps in making progress towards something. So we've increased counseling, opportunities for unwed mothers to do something other than seek abortion. We've made it more difficult for them to get an abortion. We've reduced the number of abortion providers. We've put penalties in place for people that violate the laws that we've put in place to restrict abortion. And it's not to us a matter of infringing upon a woman's right to choose her own health care or to interfere between her and her doctor. What we've wanted to do is to make them take time to think about it and give them some alternatives. I wish that there was no abortions. I wish that every unwanted child could be adopted. And
I think it's counter to the birthing bill, though.
yes,
If you force them to take time, and you're taking away that choice by the birthing bill. I mean, I'm not for it by any means.
Right.
It's wrong, but kind of a contradiction there.
a little bit, but it's,
What Ken alluded to, folks, on legislation, you take what you can get this year.
yeah.
And even if it's only 10% of what you want, you get your foot in the door. And then you can go back to the well next year and get more legislation applied the way you want it. But absolutism is fine, but both these guys can tell you, you put an absolute bill in the legislature, and it's probably going to die because it's going to be too much. It's incrementalism. The other side has been doing this for decades, and look where they're at now. So, we take what we can get. I like to have it. We ask for 125%. That way you can give away 1/5 of what you ask for and still get what you want. But if you can only get 50% or 20%, you take it now, today, rather than just getting nothing. So it's like if you're selling something, you want to sell it for as much as you can. But if you need to sell it, you need the money. You're going to take what you can get, and it's the same deal with legislation. Ed, you had a question?
Well, I'll ask the future. Ginger was asking, we started homeschooling our kids in 1988, all right? But I will tell you from our experience, paying the property taxes and never getting a dime back over it and then have to pay the curriculum for the kid is quite expensive. Do you have a provision in Oklahoma for the homeschoolers?
Even on the Hope Scholarship Fund and some of the tax break opportunities that Oklahoma has presented to alternative education or to private schools or to charter schools and stuff have not bled over into the homeschool industry. The homeschool industry in Oklahoma is still pretty much in its infancy in organizing and pursuing legislation to benefit them. A lot of school districts have made curriculum available to homeschoolers so that they don't have to purchase it from an outside vendor, maybe from another state or something, so that they make sure that homeschoolers are getting the same curriculum as public educated students. We have made great strides in that direction.
Let me ask you a question. Epic schools, I understand they're shut down or they've been absorbed or something. Do you know anything about that?
No, they're still, my wife's a teacher there, so I think she still has a job, Terry.
Okay.
I think you saw that they disbanded, what is it, Ken?
The management company.
The management company. The management company was getting all the money, and the management company was the one that profited by people choosing their kids to go to Epic. So the management company disbanded. Epic itself is still viable, and it's not a replacement for common education. I've never said that, never will, but I think it's a good alternative. I mean, it's nice to have that choice, that if you want to homeschool light, I guess, the curriculum's already there with Epic.
Epic is the largest school district in the state.
Yes, by far.
More students in
That
Epic.
goes back to the property tax thing. We're paying property taxes, but we want to send our kids to Epic, basically having to pay for it twice.
I hear that argument from people, but the same argument applies to a retired person or people that have no children.
No, I get it.
Our Constitution of the state of Oklahoma says we will provide a quality education to every child publicly in the state of Oklahoma.
Terry talked about those steps. We took a couple of big steps this last session, especially with the open transfer to allow more school choice. The other thing we did is we raised the limits on how much could be donated to the Opportunity Scholarship Fund. We raised that quite a bit. So the Opportunity Scholarship Fund is going to be a $50 million fund, $25 million to private and charter schools, $25 million to Common Ed. It doesn't cost you a thing. It's just people donating money. Private citizens and businesses donate money to this fund, and that was another big step we took last session.
It's kind of like the idea of the voucher. That way, you have this voucher that supports this money. I can choose where my money goes.
We're working toward being more school choice. I don't know if we're strong enough to get a voucher passed. Yeah, it's going to be a while, but we are moving more towards school choice, and we took a giant leap this year. The Opportunity Scholarship Fund I told you about, it came up for a vote 2 years ago, and I was a heck no, I'm not doing that. And in those 2 years, I learned it's a heck of a good deal, and I screwed up when I voted no, and then this time I voted yes.
Yes,
Well, I'm a new guy.
welcome.
Not here.
Welcome. Hope to see you next time.
I got a question. I do know that Oklahoma has signed the bill for the Second Amendment, right?
For the what?
For the Second Amendment.
Yes.
I understand that we get it. Okay, the new gun law they're trying to pass. Better. How far is Oklahoma going to go to make sure we keep our rights?
I would imagine we'll go until the money's dried up, and I think we'll take it as far as we can, because we representatives and senators know what our constituents want, and that is one thing that's very clear to us. They want their Second Amendment rights, and I would vote for anything to keep that continued on.
Well, Hunter, I don't know where I'm coming from. But if it comes to my rights, if I'm going to lose my rights as an American citizen, I will defend it.
The thing about that, though, is that you have these federal laws, our state laws that you guys passed to make us a sanctuary state, which means that your sheriffs, your local law enforcement, OSBI, and stuff like that are not going to enforce these laws. So good luck getting the federal government's ATF cronies to basically go around the country and collect guns from 300 people.
Right.
And if they come knocking, just say, hey, there was a really, really unfortunate boating accident, and
I was just going to say, the boating accident is the most popular one.
That's going to swim like
Yeah.
I didn't tell you before I put the boat in the Chickasha River. How do you know about that?
One of the provisions that we put into place this year, besides giving the Attorney General the authority and the funding to fight federal overreach, whether it's by presidential
Executive order
that goes too far or decisions made by Congress, is if the House and Senate feel that the Attorney General is not fulfilling his duty as we told him to, not pursuing what the will of the people is, then we reserve the right for the House and Senate to go outside the Attorney General and hire our own outside counsel and fight those federal overreach programs. So we felt like that gave us a good backup plan. Should we get an Attorney General? We're going to get a new one shortly, and then we have an election coming up for a state Attorney General. If we got a bad one that wouldn't do the will of the people, we did save overreach for the House and Senate to override him and seek outside counsel to defend the state.
Some jurisdictions have put teeth in that law. The local sheriff can arrest federal agents if they come out to enforce unconstitutional laws locally. And we don't have that yet. I got a feeling that's going to be on the agenda. Of course. No, it's fine. That's what we're here for.
I am thoroughly wondering how long we're going to they say America is doing. China is like everything around.
in the world too.
They're not going to have fire shot. K County over here, it's crazy.
One thing
I hear
that,
horror stories, excuse me.
Yeah.
One thing. I hear horror stories of people that are setting up, China setting up,
Oh, yeah.
And it's south of Garden down there. They say you can't even go up in their driveway unless they meet you with an AK.
Yeah, we've all heard those. It's happening everywhere.
So, what are we going to do?
Well, especially,
We going to join China or what are we going to do?
especially speaking to this crowd, Oklahoma has laws in place against foreign ownership of Oklahoma land. But it's many of your and my friends and neighbors that are willing to sell out and serve as straw men for those purchases for that land. There's not a person in this room that doesn't understand what a straw purchase is on a firearm. And it's the same thing that's going on now with land sales and grow operations. You know, they come in and they offer a guy twice what his property's worth. Then they give him a cut of the gross sales to be the front man and have his name on the paperwork and on the license. And we got Oklahomans selling out.
Paying cash.
Yep,
Many
yep.
and most of these grow operations have not been inspected. They addressed that this year. There's funding in place, as they mentioned, to hire more agents. Now, I didn't know until the other evening, these agents that enforce the marijuana growers, they're not cleat certified, so they can't go armed.
Right.
And that would be a nervous way to make a living dealing with these crazy Chinese with machine guns. But they are addressing this, and again, it's a step at a time, folks. This whole thing with the marijuana has gotten way out of hand, and it's this Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Mafia, one and the same. That's where all this is coming from. But they are addressing it. It just legislation moves like a glacier in Alaska.
And when you pass legislation, you don't know what the effects are going to be. We didn't know the effects of passing the marijuana bill. We didn't know that we'd have 7,000 grow operations in the state.
Do you guys think that it's still kind of in the newlywed stage?
It's the Wild West, and the Wild West got settled.
It's going to kind of settle down a little bit. I mean,
You know, for an example, Colorado they started with medicinal marijuana, and then they passed recreational marijuana and still kept medical marijuana on the side. There are medical dispensaries and recreational dispensaries. The taxes are less on the medical facilities. Your product is cheaper than it is for recreational.
I think you got to, on the medical in Colorado, you got to go a little bit farther than I don't feel good. You got to have a true medical reason.
And you have, the same thing with the straw versus land. You have doctors like, come on.
Sure.
75 bucks a cash, I'll write your car.
Yep.
Or whatever.
But as long as the programs have been in place in Colorado, and you can speak to this, every year there's still legislation in Colorado addressing it and fixing problems and fine-tuning the system. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel to put it into place, but we're sure having to play catch-up after 3 years of the program being in place. So.
Bob, you have a question?
I was looking at
You stand, please.
looking at a pickup over there on Highway 60. The guy that owns the property was hit up this week for his property across the street from the Chinese grow house. So that tells you how rampant it is.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
This morning, and he brought it up.
There's one just west of I-35 between Tonopah and Perry that last time I was by there, it looks like they're putting up another 8 or 10 of those plastic Quonset huts.
One of my seatmates that lives, her district is Pauls Valley area, and she sent out a picture this week of a property for sale there at Pauls Valley, a mobile home that no one in this room would live in on 5 acres. They're asking $275,000 for it, and they'll probably get it, They'll probably get it from a grow operation.
I have friends in Denver. One of their friends owns one of the big dispensaries up there. Every day, he leaves his business with a suitcase with 6 figures in it. Every day, 365 days a year. And its feds are going to have to do something, because this is it's gotten so big and it's crazy, this much money floating around, and they can't use the banks.
All they have to do is say marijuana is not a Schedule I drug. That's all they, and it will fix everything.
Yep. Yes, sir.
What I heard when they legalized marijuana, that made a certain amount of meth illegal. Misdemeanor.
No, that was 780. That was State Question 780. And that was, that passed, and I think the reason it passed is people thought it was for medical marijuana. I think they thought it was going to make marijuana legal. They didn't realize it had all the other things. That's something we have to address slowly, because the will of the, somebody's going to say you're going against the will of the people, but that's a pretty screwed up thing, and we're looking at it, and we got to do it slowly and carefully. But it's, I've been thinking about at least go to where if you get 5 or 10 misdemeanors, then you automatically got to go to rehab or something. But right now it's just unlimited, and we're like a tourist destination for people to use drugs because the law's so soft because of 780.
This is really demotivating for law enforcement.
Yes, it is.
And for
They're out busting their tail.
and for the district attorneys.
And for district attorneys, yes. Brian's very vocal on this. Char?
Yes.
Bree, this wasn't a question I was going to ask, but thinking of it with these grow operations, I've been forced the last couple of months to stay pretty close to home, so I've been watching a lot of varying views on things that are happening. One of the things that I've heard is that with these grow operations, the amount of electricity and water that they're taking for these grows, I'm hearing that there's a chance right here in Oklahoma that we're going to be on rolling blackouts and water shortages. Does anybody know anything about that?
That'd be the first I heard of it.
I can tell you that the rural electric cooperatives are pretty happy with the grow
And the
with
city
grow
municipal
operations.
power authorities. Yeah. Blackwell.
But to counteract that, what I heard yesterday was that now the state of Texas is able to control those smart thermostats in your home without you even without you even knowing about it. They encouraged everybody to buy them because it was gonna, equal out the amount of electricity going out and so on and so forth. Now they're saying that through this, whatever their electric company is, they can actually go in and change the temperature in your home of your thermostat. If you find out that there's an illegal grow or whatever, how does that affect the rest of the citizens, including, let me just add on to this, if there are, and I don't know, about illegals being shipped to our state, where are we going to end up getting taxed? Do y'all pay for these? Do y'all know about, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff there.
So far in the grow operations that have been busted, they have not seized any illegals. They're in the country legally, but on some of these grow operations, they're keeping them in subhuman conditions, in shacks, no running water, no electricity, and they're working them like human trafficking laborers to come to Oklahoma to work these grow operations. They're actively recruiting them in California with newspaper ads, both to invest their money in pot farms in Oklahoma and to come and work in Oklahoma. So these are people from Chinese communities that can't find work or for whatever reason in California, and they're bringing them here, and then they treat them like slaves. Yeah.
Well, if they come from China, they're used to that.
Oh, yeah.
That's true, Terry.
I have another question, second of both you guys. I brought this up in last month's meeting. So since you're here, I'll ask, where are we in the process, and how long do you think it'll be before we can expect to see a ballot measure for amendment to Article 2, Section 26 of our state constitution?
What is that?
That's the one that negates the Second Amendment.
There you go.
It says, shall not be infringed, but we can pass laws regulating guns.
But nothing herein contained shall prevent the legislature from regulating the carrying of weapons.
That's in our Constitution?
Yeah. SJR 21 was the last number. This is something OK2A has been trying to work on.
I think the key language in there was
The last 2 years,
carrying,
there's been some
correct?
talk about it.
Well, the right citizen to keep and bear arms in defense of his home, personal property, or in aid of the civil power, when thereunto legally summoned, shall never be prohibited, but nothing herein contained shall prevent the legislature from regulating the carrying of weapons.
Totally negative.
Well, we can do
It's just on the carrying.
Yeah.
Just the carrying is what it impacts.
But
Yeah.
We can pass an SJR to put that on the ballot, but you guys can also do what it needs to be done to create a ballot question. Your OK2A is so dang organized and it's so big, I don't see y'all having a problem getting enough signatures if you wanted to do that yourselves.
Do you know how many signatures are required to get on the ballot?
Gosh dang it. There's two levels, Terry. There's one that, this one would have to be constitutional because you're taking,
Exactly.
it's a percentage based on the last general election.
Oh, okay.
And I don't remember what that is right now.
Yeah.
I want to say 180,000.
It's like 15% or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be about
It's basically
180.
the same for like, if you want to recall the government.
Yeah, it's pretty low percentage in Oklahoma.
Sorry?
Just to add to my previous thing, how does Oklahoma respond, or how does it affect us with these red flag laws that are?
We're an anti-red flag state. We passed that.
We took care of that.
We did that. That was the only bill OK2A got through last year.
During COVID.
Yes, what I'm talking about is when they come, hypothetically, what's your defense and when, other than the fact that we're
it doesn't if the feds pass a red flag law, then that's going to be a problem. But again, with the preemption, it's my understanding that even if the feds pass that, the feds would have to send either ATF, U.S. Marshals, FBI.
Your local law enforcement's not going to
Wouldn't do it.
Right.
okay.
That's why the local sheriff is so important, folks. He's the most important law enforcement officer in the county, bar none.
In the nation.
Yeah. Ron?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was my question, is we've got the AG here now as our proponent for unconstitutional legislation from the federal side. Is there anything that preempts non-constitutional legislation?
From the feds? Well, that was the 10th Amendment state rights bill.
Yeah, state rights.
When it says anything not explicitly basically stated in the Constitution is
In the state's purview,
right.
yes.
So the feds pass something, but then you at the same time you have put in place your
Pushback.
Yeah, your pushback, your 10 million, the state attorney general and stuff like that. So we have a little bit of buffer there.
If I understand them correctly, we had two bills this year that addressed it. I can't remember the numbers, I'm horrible with numbers, but the Second Amendment sanctuary for the whole state, and most especially the 10th Amendment states' rights bill.
Yes.
That was passed and signed by the governor this year, and I believe that was an emergency measure,
Yes.
if I'm remembering correctly, which meant it went into effect the day the governor signed it. And so what that does, that doesn't give the state the right to enforce the 10th Amendment. It's, again, the way I understand it, it's notifying the federal government that the state of Oklahoma will use its right under the Constitution to enforce the 10th Amendment, which pulls the rug out from underneath the federal government on a lot of this stuff. The 10th Amendment has been totally ignored in this country my entire life, and I'm down here 74. This is notifying the federal government that we are going to be exercising our rights under the 10th Amendment. That's my understanding. Is that
Maybe a good example of that, to put it in perspective you can understand, is Oklahoma's pushback against federal mandates against fracking. And states that have no fracking, states that have no oil and gas production, don't get it, don't understand it, but Oklahoma does, and that's one of the areas that we've pushed back on and will continue to push back on for the oil and gas industry and the energy industry in the state of Oklahoma.
And also kind of like what I've seen recently for the oil and natural gas, on federal lands too.
Yes.
That's part of that pushback, correct?
Yeah, and I just came from a conference in Santa Fe with the Energy Council where New Mexico, some of the other western states, North and South Dakota, Wyoming, where, it's like 75% of their oil and gas production is on public lands and not mineral leases from private citizens. So to ban, for the federal government to ban any further oil and gas drilling on public lands is tremendous overreach. And some of those states we're not already prepared to fight federal overreach like that, to stand up against executive orders banning drilling on public lands like that and stuff. We're in a good position with a pro-oil and gas industry, Senate, House, Governor.
I'm fine with that anti-fracking on public lands because we have left very little public land in Oklahoma. Let's let those rigs
come back to Oklahoma and
we'll
drill.
let you frack all you want.
Ken mentioned New Mexico. I'd bet my car that the New Mexico administration would not challenge this.
Oh, no, they probably love it, that governor especially. New Mexico was one of the most shut down states of them all.
It still is.
I moved back to Tonkawa 4 years ago from Albuquerque. 2 months, 3 months ago, there was a study released. Statistically, it's more dangerous to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico than it is to live in Kabul, Afghanistan. That's what I texted you.
That's what you told me, yeah.
Yeah. Santa Fe might not be quite so bad. That's what's going on, folks. It's more dangerous to live in Albuquerque than in Kabul. That's what
81% rise.
That's what these liberal administrations will give you. That's the main reason. There's a lot of reasons I left New Mexico and moved back to Tonkawa, but that's the big one because it's dangerous there. In between the mid-'70s and 2017 when I left, I was burglarized 14 times.
Oh, gosh.
And robbed at gunpoint once. So that's what it's like. And I was in a middle-class neighborhood, not a top end, but it was a nice neighborhood. And that's just how. In Albuquerque, if you want to be safe, you live with bars on your windows and doors. I lived behind bars. I don't think I've seen a house.
That's just not right. That's
yeah.
just not right.
Oh no. But that's what a liberal administration will get you.
So one final question from me. Which one of you two would have any kind of oversight on workers' comp?
That'd be judiciary.
We both can try and help you with an issue with it, but it's not on any of the committees that I serve on. I serve on Veterans Affairs, Energy, Higher Ed, and Career Tech.
Yeah, I'm on Business, Commerce, and Tourism, but I think workman's comp issues might be on judiciary, might be under the Judiciary Committee. I'm not sure.
Our offices do have a liaison with them to try and help
with every
citizens.
department, so we'd be more than happy to contact the department on your behalf. Yeah.
So afterwards, can I talk to you guys?
Yeah, you bet.
Exchange information and stuff.
Yes, sir.
If the executive orders, from my understanding, are not law, how can they enforce them?
You would have to ask a federal law expert.
There was an article this morning stating specifically that a number of Trump-appointed judges are starting to cut back on the authority or the power of these executive actions, because that's something else the federal government's gotten way out of control.
Yeah.
Way out of control.
Well, that's the same thing with like these lockdowns and stuff like that. You have a governor like
New Mexico,
that has these executive orders shutting things down, and because the governor is basically over the state police, they can just have you arrested because they say so.
The governor of New Mexico completely closed Gallup in western New Mexico. It's right on I-40. They closed the entire town down under this pandemic that they had going. So, yeah, it's way out of control, and it's gotten worse this last year with, all these actions related to this Chinese virus. It ain't COVID, folks. It's a Chinese virus.
Gun flu, yeah.
The question is about the marijuana growers.
Yes, ma'am.
Dispensaries. What needs to happen to these people? They employ people to work for them, pay them under the table. One of them gets hurt. They don't even file a report. They don't even notify workers' comp. What needs to happen?
We need the feds to take it off of Schedule 1 so they can be treated like any other legitimate business.
That's kind of where we need to go with it.
Yes.
It's basically treated like any other agriculture. I'm not a big proponent of it. I hate the fact that I live a mile from work and I'm driving past 4 dispensaries on the way. It's ridiculous. But, at the same time, I'm like, should we really be regulating?
Yes, sir.
You know,
Yeah, why can't they be legit and operate like they should?
Yeah, they're
How do you get federal involved?
crooks.
Through you guys?
We don't want this.
Huh?
Through you two?
How do you what?
Get the feds involved. Do we go through you guys?
No, contact your congressman.
Frank Lucas?
Frank Lucas?
And there's been a lot of progress made at the federal level of taking marijuana off the Schedule 1, where it's scheduled with heroin and cocaine and fentanyl, and bringing it out of that Schedule 1.
Yeah,
Is,
I
you
don't
know,
have a problem with, having marijuana dispensaries, get a medical license from proven medical problems. I'm fine with that. But it's just, we've got one guy here in the county that not only grows his own product, but he has a dispensary. My son worked for him, got injured on the job while he was helping the owner. The owner refused to fill out a medical form or even contact workman's comp. And he pays under the table.
yeah.
Probably not paying workman's comp.
Yeah,
Probably not.
probably not
Probably
paying
not.
workman's comp. He's paying under the table. I mean, if he's paying under the table, he's probably not paying for his workman's comp insurance. Yeah.
That's a pretty
Or his
safe-
taxes.
I'm sure.
but then back to what Ken said,
There's a lot of, let me tell you, there's a lot of rules to comply with contract labor. And you can't, for instance, you can't require an employee to be at a certain location at a certain time for a certain length of time. Plus, there's a lot of others. The IRS has got this covered because, well, they don't like it.
Yeah.
So you can't, there's a lot of people that abuse it, but if they get caught, they're going to be in trouble in federal court. So, okay.
Yeah, on the heartbeat law, fetal heartbeat, has that survived challenge in the courts yet anywhere? Because, they're shutting down every law against
Right.
the feds are,
Yeah.
The judges.
I'm not sure how far Oklahoma's has gone, and I'm not sure how other states have gone. I know we weren't the first state to pass a fetal heartbeat.
Okay, so
Other states have passed it, so that might be something you'd want to Google later and see what you can find from other states. See how far
That's
they've
fine,
got.
it's my ignorance, I'm sure.
Did you have a question back there too?
Yeah, I was in a tag office over here a while back, and a lady came in to get her license renewed. And the guy said, are you registered to vote? And she said, yes. And I asked him, I said, well, what if she had said no? He said, I would register her. And I said, well, how are you sure that she's a citizen? I'd ask her, is there anything to stop illegal aliens from registering to vote in the state of Oklahoma if they just say, yeah, I'm a citizen?
When they sign that voter registration card, they're certifying under oath that they're signing an affidavit that they are legal to vote, legal citizen.
Is there any mechanism that checks that, or they, in a lot of other states, they just say, don't worry about it, because nobody will catch you?
We passed something on candidates this last session that they have to prove that they're at the right address, because a lot of time a candidate will file and then they'll realize they filed in the wrong district. Yeah. So we got a little bit sticky into that, but as far as the voter registration goes, it's still, they got to swear that they are a citizen of the state of Oklahoma. And we take their word for it. The driver's license, I would imagine they'd have to have some form of some ID, passport or something to prove that they're who they are.
At the tag office, they said they just asked. I said, what if he says C?
Well, eventually, when everybody's supposed to have their real IDs, that keeps getting pushed back. I know with the real ID, you've got to show up with paperwork.
ID to vote and everything else. Well, they've got their driver's license. They show up and they're bringing them in by the busloads and telling them how to vote and everything. Shouldn't that be a concern?
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
I appreciate it.
Election integrity has become a major major concern in this entire country.
I didn't think Oklahoma had any problems until I heard that. And then there's all kinds of other things. I want to go talk to the election board and find out what machines are used, what their process is, and how they clean up their voter rolls and everything else.
I can tell you one thing about Oklahoma. We had a race in southeast Oklahoma, and it was a state senate race, and they filed for a recount, spread over 5 or 6 county election boards. They did the recount, didn't change one vote. So I think our system in Oklahoma might be the bell cow of the United States. I'm very proud of
It's the
it.
cleanest system in the
Yeah.
country. That's the reason 2 elections in a row we were all red in this state. And that's because we have an honest vote.
But that's a good point. I'll look into that.
Yeah, just one more real quick. Does foreign ownership equal foreign investment or vice versa in these marijuana grow operations?
No. Short answer, no.
Okay, so ownership is corporate or
Straw man.
LLC, whatever.
Yes.
But we don't know who's investing
Right.
that straw man.
Right.
Is there anything being done to look and investigate?
Not yet, but I'm sure there will be. Yeah.
I think it's something you have to claim on your taxes when you file it. And again, that comes back to, how long it's going.
I'm sure they all file it on their tax.
Oh, yeah. Especially the workers probably file that cash on their taxes
All
too.
that cash.
Folks, we've got time for one more question. Let these gentlemen get on with their weekend. You got one more question? Did I time it that well? Hey, am I a pro or what? Oh,
One last question.
One more, Terry.
Just to bust my bubble, he did.
It's not about a law or anything. It's what's the website to find out what the redistricting for the House district?
There's a link.
OKHouse.gov.
Yeah.
Or OKSenate.gov.
And then there's a link on there to go to
We'll see
redistricting maps and everything and any information.
Those are 2 good websites to have bookmarked.
Yeah.
There is a ton of information through that state.
Terry,
Also,
I want to touch on redistricting.
on,
Go ahead.
on Facebook, I'm sure the Senate does too, but I'll put the plug in for the Oklahoma House Republicans has a Facebook page that lists what the House Republicans are up to, the legislation that we've passed, that we've supported, information on the authors, the votes, etc. So if you're a Facebook fan, the House Republicans have their own Facebook page.
I hope redistricting can show you all how transparent the state of Oklahoma is. That was the most transparent process ever in redistricting. There were meetings all across the state we looked for input. There were online meetings we looked for input. Citizens were allowed to submit their own maps. It was the most transparent redistricting process that's ever happened in the state of Oklahoma.
We are fortunate to live in Oklahoma, folks. I'm convinced this is the freest state in the union as far as individual liberties.
We haven't had any significant population increase.
The metros have increased, the rurals have decreased. Yep.
That's
Yep.
a problem.
So when redistricting happened, me and Ken, we have to expand our geographic area to get the amount of people, while in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they're shrinking them down because they got too many.
You got Sky too?
No. Yeah, I've got all Sky, or will have all
Yeah,
Sky.
District 37 had decreased in population by 8%.
Mine's about the same. No, we're not going to increase our electorate. We'll still have 5 congressmen or women.
And just briefly, thank you for having us, Terry.
Thank you for coming. And appreciate the information.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it.
On behalf of Senator Coleman and myself, I'd like to get the last plug in to thank you all for all that you do here in the local communities, to tell you how privileged and honored we are, the trust that you've placed in us to serve you and your families and to work for you and your community. And thank you for the input that you share with us, the contacts to our offices to let us know how you're feeling and things that you're concerned about. We appreciate you and thank you very much.
Thank you all very, very much.
Don Spencer says, just a second, I got a few more things. Don Spencer says the reason we got 15 of our back bills through the legislature this year is because of us out here in the trenches. It gives him a lot longer lever when he's trying to pry these guys' vote one side of the fence or the other. Really appreciate y'all coming today. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.
I will.
Thanks for giving us so much time. Okay, now, next month, our meeting is on the 24th, July 24th, and I've got Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell is going to be our speaker next month. So that should be well worth hearing. Also, Jackson Lamar, who is challenging James Langford for the U.S. Senate in the primary next year, he will be speaking here the next month in August. So it'll be a good chance to hear him, and he's a dynamite speaker. I saw him speak for an hour in Guthrie, and he used the word fight and fighter probably 8 or 10 times. He's wanting to get in there and fight for us. Langford's lost track, in my opinion. I've been trying to get Langford to come to K County for almost a year, and I just keep getting jerked around. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Oh, you got...
Anybody's interested in U.S. Law Shield?
Oh, yeah.
I have information.
Yeah, if you're interested in U.S. Law Shield, talk to Glenn. He's got everything. Thanks, everybody, for coming. See you next month. Sure.